You are standing in Europe in 1940 and the rule seems unbreakable. Wars are decided by armies in the field, by divisions maneuvering across maps, by tanks burning fuel and men bleeding in mud. Germany believes this rule more deeply than anyone alive. They have crushed Poland in weeks, France in days. They have rewritten military textbooks with speed, coordination, shock. Panzer columns slice through borders like knives through paper, and Luftwaffe bombers turn cities into smoke. Every German general understands the same truth. If you destroy the enemy's armies faster than he can replace them, the war ends. Simple, brutal, final. So when German intelligence surveys the United States in 1940, they do not see a threat. They see a nation with a tiny standing army, barely 190,000 men. They see outdated aircraft, obsolete tanks, no combat experience against modern mechanized warfare. And they laugh at the idea that a country separated by an ocean with no tradition of mass mobilization could matter in a continental war already decided by steel and speed. Factories do not win wars, they think. Soldiers do. And yet, while German officers count divisions and barrels of fuel, something else is happening, far from the front lines, far from foxholes and artillery fire. In places with names that never appear on battlefield maps: Flint, Detroit, Willow Run, Pittsburgh. Inside buildings longer than airfields. Inside rooms where no shots are fired. Inside factories where the sound is not gunfire but stamping presses, pounding day and night. Germany does not hear that sound, but it is the sound of the rule breaking. Because in 1941, one man looks at the battlefield and decides the war will not be won there at all. And that decision changes everything. You are William Signius Knudsen. You are 61 years old when war comes for your country. You were born in Copenhagen in 1879, the son of a stove maker. You immigrated to the United States with nothing. No pedigree, no military education, no political backing. What you have is a mind that understands machines and scale. By 1940, you are the president of General Motors, the largest industrial corporation on Earth. You have overseen production systems that turn raw steel into automobiles at a pace no nation has ever matched. You understand something most generals do not. Modern war is not fought by heroes. It is fought by replacement rates. In June 1940, France collapses. Britain stands alone. The United States is still officially neutral, but President Franklin Roosevelt knows the truth. Neutrality will not survive the decade. So he makes an unprecedented move. He brings you into the U.S. government, not as a consultant, but as a commander. You are given the rank of lieutenant general. No battlefield command, no troops. Your weapon is production. Your mission is terrifyingly vague and impossibly large. Prepare America to outbuild the Axis. At the time, the numbers are humiliating. Germany produces more than 10,000 aircraft per year. The United States produces fewer than 3,000. American tank output is measured in the hundreds. Ammunition stockpiles are dangerously low. The U.S. Army Air Corps has fewer than 4,000 combat aircraft, many already obsolete. And yet Roosevelt sets a goal that stuns even his own cabinet: 50,000 aircraft per year. Not eventually, not in theory. Now, the military planners blanch, economists protest. Engineers say it cannot be done. The factories do not exist. The workers are not trained. The supply chains are not in place. You listen to all of it, and then you say something that will define the war. We will build them in automobile plants. What Germany does not understand, what they cannot understand, is that you are not thinking like a general. You are thinking like a production engineer. And you know the battlefield is about to move. You do not start by building weapons. You start by breaking habits. The U.S. military wants hand-built precision, craftsmen, small batches, perfect tolerances. That approach produces beautiful machines in catastrophically small numbers. You tear it out. You demand standardization. Interchangeable parts, simplified designs, no custom fittings, no artisanal perfection. If a rivet slows production, the rivet goes. You divide every weapon system into thousands of subcomponents and scatter them across the continent. One plant stamps fuselage panels, another builds engines, a third produces landing gear. None of them see the whole airplane. They do not need to. You know something Germany does not: complexity kills scale. By early 1941, construction begins on the most audacious factory ever conceived, Willow Run. It is built in Michigan near Detroit. When finished, it covers 3.5 million square feet under one roof. The assembly line stretches more than a mile long. At full operation, raw aluminum enters one end, and a finished B-24 Liberator bomber rolls out the other. Every 63 minutes, Germany builds bombers in workshops. You build them like refrigerators. But this is not smooth. Not at first. Early production is a disaster. Workers are untrained, parts do not fit, engines arrive late, entire aircraft sit incomplete, clogging the line. The military panics, Congress investigates. Newspapers mock the delays. You do not slow down, you speed up. You bring in automobile foremen, you retrain farm boys and housewives. You break tasks down until no job takes more than minutes. You install overhead conveyors, color-coded parts. Quality checks embedded in motion. By mid-1942, the line stabilizes. Then it accelerates. One bomber per hour, then more. At the same time, tank factories surge. The M4 Sherman, mechanically simple, easy to repair, endlessly replaceable, rolls off lines by the tens of thousands. German tanks are superior one-on-one. Heavier armor, bigger guns. You do not care. You understand attrition math. If one Sherman dies and another replaces it tomorrow, the loss is irrelevant. If one Panther dies and takes 6 months to replace, it is fatal. By 1943, the United States produces 86,000 tanks, 300,000 aircraft, 44 billion rounds of ammunition. Germany cannot even comprehend numbers like these. Their intelligence reports become surreal. Factories bombed, production rises. Ships sunk, more ships appear. Divisions destroyed, new ones land overseas. German generals begin asking questions they never prepared for. How do you defeat an enemy who treats loss as a temporary inconvenience? And they are about to learn the answer. You are now fighting a war measured not in miles, but in minutes. Germany still believes production has limits. Steel shortages, skilled labor shortages, transportation bottlenecks. They assume every nation breaks eventually under strain. You design a system that feeds on strain. By 1942, the United States is no longer mobilizing. It is converting its entire civilization into a weapons engine. Civilian automobile production stops completely. Not slows, stops. Every press, every jig, every assembly line is repurposed. Refrigerators become aircraft skins. Washing machine plants stamp artillery shells. Typewriter factories produce machine guns. At Willow Run, the numbers stop sounding real. In early 1942, the factory produces one bomber every 8 hours. By late 1943, it produces one every 63 minutes. At peak output, more than 42,000 workers, men and women, many with no industrial background, operate around the clock in 3 shifts. The plant consumes 7,000 tons of material per day. Aluminum, steel, rubber, wiring, glass. Think about that. Every day, enough metal passes through one factory to equip an entire air force. And Willow Run is not unique. By mid-1943, the United States operates more than 200,000 industrial facilities tied into war production. Railroads run on military priority schedules. New ports are built. New shipyards appear almost overnight. The Kaiser yards launch Liberty ships faster than crews can be trained to sail them. One ship every 4 days, then every day, then faster. Germany sinks ships in the Atlantic, and more appear the following week than were lost. For the first time in the war, German planners confront something alien: negative progress. Every successful attack makes the enemy stronger by triggering even more production. On the Eastern Front, the Red Army bleeds. On the Western Front, the Allies prepare. And behind all of it, American factories erase loss itself. You have changed the meaning of destruction. A tank destroyed in North Africa no longer weakens the Allies, it creates data, a feedback loop. The next model arrives with thicker armor, better radios, standardized parts. Field reports move directly into design offices, and design offices push changes straight back to the line. No delay, no debate. Germany cannot match this tempo. Their factories are dispersed. Their labor pool is shrinking. Skilled workers are drafted and killed at the front. Bombing raids force production underground, fragmenting already fragile supply chains. Each new weapon becomes more complex, more expensive, harder to build. You move in the opposite direction. You simplify. You remove unnecessary tolerances. You accept imperfections that do not affect battlefield function. You prioritize speed over elegance, replacement over preservation. By late 1943, the math becomes unavoidable. The United States produces more aircraft than Germany, Italy, and Japan combined. More tanks than the Axis can destroy. More ammunition than entire fronts can expend. German commanders begin issuing orders that sound desperate. Avoid unnecessary engagements. Conserve fuel. Recover damaged equipment at all costs, because now every loss is permanent, and the enemy's losses are not. This realization hits Germany hardest in the air. Allied bombers begin appearing in formations so large they blot out the sky. Hundreds, then thousands. When German fighters intercept, they score kills, but the bombers keep coming. The next day, and the next, you have built something Germany cannot shoot down. A pipeline, and it is only accelerating. If you find this kind of forgotten history as fascinating as we do, we'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. We believe these stories of industrial genius and national sacrifice deserve to be told, and by subscribing, you help us ensure they aren't forgotten. The turning point is not a battle, it is a realization inside German headquarters. In 1944, intelligence officers compile production estimates. They argue over them. They revise them upward, then upward again. Finally, they stop debating numbers and start questioning assumptions. How do you win a war when the enemy replaces an entire air force faster than you can destroy it? The answer is simple: you cannot. By the time Allied forces land in Normandy, the outcome is already locked. Not by tactics on the beach, but by factories thousands of miles away. Every tank knocked out in France is replaced before the crew's families even receive notification. Every aircraft lost over Germany is replaced before the wreckage cools. The battlefield has become irrelevant. Germany fights brilliantly, courageously, desperately, but they are fighting the wrong enemy. They are fighting soldiers. You are fighting time. And time is on your side. What Germany does not know, what they cannot know, is that the true impact of your work will only be understood after the war ends. Because this is not just about winning battles. You have permanently altered how wars are fought. Attrition no longer favors the tactically superior force. It favors the economically superior system. From this moment forward, industrial capacity becomes the ultimate weapon, not bravery, not genius, capacity. The Soviet Union adopts elements of the model. Post-war Europe studies it. Future conflicts, from Korea to the Cold War, are shaped by the lesson you proved at unimaginable scale. Wars are won before the first shot. By 1945, Germany's factories lie in ruins. Their replacement pipelines are shattered. Their armies fight on with dwindling equipment, dwindling fuel, dwindling hope. They were never outfought. They were outproduced. When the war ends, you do not celebrate. You return quietly to civilian life. William S. Knudsen dies in 1948 at the age of 69. No battlefield memorial marks your work. No victory parade bears your name. Most Americans never hear it. But every soldier who survived because a replacement arrived in time owes you something. Every pilot who climbed into a bomber that existed only because production never stopped owes you something. Every family that welcomed someone home because loss was no longer final owes you something. This story matters now because the world still believes wars are decided by strength alone. They are not. They are decided by systems, by foresight, by the unglamorous genius of people who never fire a shot, but ensure that defeat becomes mathematically impossible. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state and tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for ensuring that William S. Knudsen and the millions of workers who powered Allied victory do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered. You are no longer reacting to the war. You are dictating its tempo. By early 1944, the scale of American production has passed the point where human intuition can process it. The numbers stop being impressive and start becoming abstract until you translate them back into battlefield reality. Every month, the United States produces more trucks than the entire German army possesses. Not just tanks, not just aircraft, trucks. More than 600,000 military vehicles roll out in a single year. Cargo trucks, fuel tankers, ambulances, mobile repair units. Vehicles that do not win headlines but win wars. Because an army that cannot move cannot fight, and Germany is running out of movement. You understand this before anyone else. An army is not a spear. It is a bloodstream, fuel, ammunition, spare parts, food, tires, radios, boots. If those keep flowing, the army lives. If they stop, the army collapses, no matter how brave its soldiers are, so you flood the bloodstream. On the eve of the Normandy invasion, Allied planners calculate expected losses. They assume catastrophic destruction, thousands of vehicles abandoned, hundreds of tanks destroyed in the first weeks, aircraft losses measured in the hundreds per day, and they sign off anyway. Because for the first time in history, an army goes to war knowing, absolutely knowing, that every loss can be replaced faster than the enemy can inflict it. When the invasion begins, Germany fights exactly as expected. Beaches are mined, artillery zeroed in, tanks counterattack. Allied losses are severe, but something is wrong. Every destroyed Sherman is replaced within days. Every blown bridge is bypassed with prefabricated replacements. Every wrecked aircraft is written off without hesitation. There is no conservation, no restraint. You have removed fear from logistics. German officers notice it immediately. Captured reports describe Allied behavior as wasteful, reckless, illogical. They cannot understand why the enemy does not husband resources, why damaged equipment is abandoned instead of salvaged, why attacks continue even after heavy losses. The answer is simple: loss does not matter anymore. By July 1944, Allied forces burned through material at a rate that would have crippled any other nation. Thousands of vehicles are written off, tens of thousands of tons of ammunition expended. Entire armored units rotated out, not because they are destroyed, but because replacements are waiting. You have turned war into an industrial process, and Germany cannot adapt. Their production philosophy is inverted. They chase technical superiority, more armor, more firepower, more complexity. Each new tank takes longer to build than the last. Each new aircraft requires more skilled labor that no longer exists. Bombing raids force factories underground, breaking assembly lines into inefficient fragments. You do not disperse, you concentrate. Your factories grow larger, not smaller, more centralized, more standardized, more ruthless in efficiency. The German response comes too late. By the time they attempt emergency rationalization in 1944, the gap is already fatal. Even if they doubled output overnight, a physical impossibility, they would still fall behind. You have reached escape velocity. The moment Germany truly understands comes in the air war. Allied bombers return day after day, regardless of losses. Escort fighters appear in numbers that defy belief. German pilots shoot down aircraft in the morning and face fresh formations by afternoon. Losses that would cripple the Luftwaffe barely register on Allied planning boards, because you do not count planes. You count hours. How many hours does it take to replace one bomber? How many hours does it take Germany to replace one fighter pilot? The answers are not comparable. Germany trains pilots for years. You train crews in months and replace aircraft in days. By late 1944, German air defenses collapsed not from defeat but exhaustion. Fuel shortages ground planes. Spare parts vanish. Pilots are sent into combat with minimal training. Veterans die and are not replaced. Meanwhile, Allied production continues uninterrupted. Factories operate through holidays, through storms, through strikes that last hours, not weeks. Workers understand the equation. Every delay costs lives at the front. You have made the connection undeniable, and still you push harder. You demand more output even as victory approaches. You refuse to slow production because slowing risks creating vulnerability. There is no such thing as enough. By the time Allied armies cross the Rhine, German resistance is still fierce, but hollow. Units exist on paper without vehicles. Tanks are issued without fuel. Artillery sits silent for lack of ammunition. Germany is fighting with what it has left. You are fighting with what you will have tomorrow. That difference decides the war, not in one dramatic moment, but in millions of quiet, relentless replacements. Germany surrenders in May 1945. Their generals write memoirs searching for lost chances. Better tactics, different decisions, missed opportunities. Few of them admit the truth. Even perfect decisions would not have mattered, because no strategy survives when the enemy treats destruction as irrelevant. You did not defeat Germany's army. You defeated Germany's assumptions. The war ends, but the shock does not. Inside Germany's surviving planning staffs, a quiet autopsy begins. Officers who once believed in decisive battles now confront a harder truth. Their defeats were not caused by cowardice or incompetence. They were caused by arithmetic. They lost because every calculation assumed limits that did not exist. They assumed factories could be bombed into silence. They assumed labor shortages would cripple output. They assumed distance would slow response. They assumed loss would eventually exhaust the enemy. None of it happened. What they did not know, what they could not know, was that they were not fighting an army. They were fighting a system that converted time into power. The true impact of what you built only becomes visible after the shooting stops. American production does not collapse with victory. It transitions. Assembly lines slow, then pivot back to civilian goods. Soldiers return home to factories that already know how to operate at impossible scale. Suburbs rise. Highways stretch across continents. The same logistics that fed armies now feed economies. The United States emerges from the war not just victorious, but transformed. Military planners across the world study the lesson. Wars are no longer judged by who has the better tank, but by who can replace tanks faster than they are destroyed. This logic reshapes everything. Cold War strategy shifts from battlefield brilliance to industrial endurance. Stockpiles replace maneuvers as deterrents. Wars become contests of production curves and supply chains. Even nuclear strategy absorbs the lesson. Survivability and replacement matter more than singular blows. And for Germany, the realization is devastating. Their finest weapons never mattered enough. Their bravest soldiers were never enough. They fought a 20th century war with 19th century assumptions about limits. You erased those limits. You never stand on a battlefield. You never command troops under fire. And yet millions survive because of decisions you made behind a desk. William S. Knudsen leaves government service quietly. There are no parades, no statues. He returns to private life, his work largely invisible to the public that benefited from it. When he dies in 1948, most Americans do not recognize his name, but the legacy is everywhere. In every soldier who lived because a replacement arrived in time. In every pilot who climbed into an aircraft built by strangers they would never meet. In every family spared the finality of loss because defeat was no longer permanent. This story matters now because the world still misunderstands power. We still talk about wars as if they are decided by courage alone. They are not. They are decided by preparation, by systems, by people who understand that victory is not about avoiding loss, but about making loss irrelevant. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state and tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for ensuring that William S. Knudsen and the millions of American workers who turned factories into weapons do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.